The flight plan is loaded, the fuel is balanced and the systems are understood. Now it's time to bring this Swedish legend to life. Transitioning from a cold dark cockpit to a cruise altitude of 25,000 feet in the Saab 340 is a rhythmic, professional process. It requires more than just flicking the switches, it requires a disciplined workflow. Today we're moving from the ramp to the sky, mastering the complete departure profile of one of the most successful regional turboprops in history. Whether you're just starting your multi-engine journey or you're a seasoned pro, this is how you fly the Saab. To fly like a professional, we must respect the pre-flight phase. In Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, we don't just spawn on the runway, we use the Walkaround Mode to inspect the airframe components we discussed in episode 1. Check those de-iced boots for tears and peer into the intakes of the GE CT7 engines. This rivetless airframe isn't just for looks, it's about aerodynamic efficiency. If the exterior isn't right, the flight isn't happening. Once we're inside the cockpit, we can of course start with the engine start sequence, but before doing that, let's go first to the checklist, which you can access via the tab key. The tab key will give you this nice EFB, which allows you to go to the aircraft and go to the checklist. Inside the checklist you will find a lot of things, such as the chocks, but we already removed them. The pitot covers, we removed them. The nose gear tire, we checked it, then the engine covers were removed. Besides that, we checked the right and the Besides that, we checked the right aileron and the right flap, as well as the right tire. We checked the elevator on the end, the rudder and the left tire, left flap and the left aileron. This completes the pre-flight inspection external view, and as said already, in Flight Simulator 2020 this is a new functionality, but super nice to do and recommended to do. Then the next step is we're going to the before the engine start. If you don't know where to start, there's always that helper eye icon, which you can press to figure out where these systems are. The other thing which is super nice is that you can press the shift and then the number keys, right? Shift 1 brings you to this display, shift 2 brings you to this display, shift 3 brings you to this, 4 to the gauges, 5 to the throttles, 6 different view from the throttles, 7 brings you to the autopilot functionality, and 8 this brings us to the top of the aircraft, to the top of the cockpit, which also contains all those nice things such as the batteries. If you don't know where to search for, the cockpit or the say kind of top of the cockpit is divided into multiple sections. Here we will find the ice protection, right? We can switch on the ice protection, we can switch on the ice protection for the pitot cover, and you will see all kind of lights. We can switch on for the propellers, for the windshields, as well as for the engines. Besides that, there is the AC heat functionality and the stabilizer and wings. That's what you can find here. You can switch them on or off depending on the checklist, of course, because the checklist will tell you what to do. Scrolling down a little bit further, we will find the wipers, we find the internal lights, and that's mainly for the density, right? The digits and the control planes, which you can say cliently would say increase the light intensity or decrease the light intensity. Then further on we've got the view settings. We can switch on the X feed, which feeds the left tank with the right tank or vice versa. We can change the connector valve, and then we of course have the engine fire extinguishers. Really important, hopefully you don't need them, but they're there. Then below that we can see the battery temperature, which is also can be used for the fuel, as you can see over here. And then we've got the propeller. With the autocourse functionality, we have the fuel pumps, and then the engine themselves, right? The ignitions, the starters, and all kind of control lights, which we can have a look at very soon. In the center, we've got the internal lights, right? The dome and the initiator, which we can increase or switch on or off. And we can, as a change the light intensity, I should say. The external lights, as well as the landing and the taxi lights and the wing, are on the bottom. And that's what you will find in the second column of the, let's say, kind of cockpit top. Then moving to the right side, we can find the fire extinguishers. Also here, we can find some test settings over here where we can see the flaps, etc. And something which we'll explain later on. The AC and the DC power. The DC power, especially this one, is useful, where you can see the, let's say, kind of electricity from the multiple components, right? You can see the external power, the battery, the generator, the main, the ESS, and the avion, and the emergency. Besides that, we can see the DC electrical settings, as well as the battery settings, as well as the generators, right? You can see the generators here, as well as the external power in case you need it. Cabin signs, simply seatbelt and no smoking are there. And in the last column, you will find the audio settings, the air conditioning settings, mainly over here, where you can control both the temperature, but also if you want to switch it on or off. We've got the LBLD and the RBLD settings and the X-valves, which we're going to discuss. The emergency settings, the doors, status, the EFIS, and the wiper for the Copilot. As mentioned already, there's that nice eye icon, and the eye icon will help you identify where you need to click on if you're unfamiliar. It will also zoom into this specific component. That's super handy. The only thing which is maybe not so handy, that is if you, let's say, forget to kind of uncheck it, it will start blinking continuously. So let's first switch on the batteries. What you will now see is the aircraft comes to life. You can see the LESS bus and the RESS bus are there. The LGen and the RGen are there. And if we look, I would say a little bit here, we can see also some lights are burning here. So that's cool, right? As mentioned, you can see the eye icon here. Don't worry, you can hide it by pressing it again. So after that, you can mark the item as checked and you can go to the next item, which is the engine bleed air, which needs to be set to auto. It's always recommended to kind of try it out, right? Move it up and down to see it's in auto setting. If that's the case, simply press this setting and then you're good. Then we're going to the avionics, the ESS avionics, the essential avionics switch. So the ESS is over here. We press it and now it is switched to on, right? And then the parking brakes. For the parking brakes, we're gonna move to almost the left side of the cockpit, which is over here. So the cockpit is set. You can see currently the aircraft is starting to come alive. You can see some warnings over here. So this is a nice panel which shows you the status, like the left engine and the right engine oil pressure, the fuel, the electrics, the ice protection, the brakes, the ACE kit, and the gas lock. Gas lock. I saw a lot of people, let's say, watching that video. So thanks for watching that one and hopefully it was useful for you. Once we've done that, we go back to the top and we switch on both the seat belts and the no smoking signs. And we make sure that the ignitions are set to off. To do that, you need to remove it and you need to remove this one also and then move it to off. Kind of weird that you need to do it, but hey, this is the official checklist, so it's strongly recommended that you follow these settings. In some cases you will see that it's hard to find the button. In that case you can also use the arrows on your keyboard, if you have a keyboard, to kind of move around. Then we're there, of course, for the fuel quantity. The fuel quantity can be seen here. You can see it over here. If you want to change it, there are two options. The first option is, of course, to go to the EFB, because the EFB is the most easiest way to change it. And that's also the only option I'm going to show you. So I'll press the aircraft icon. I then go to the flight performance, and inside the flight performance, you will see the mass and balance. In the mass and balance page, you can load your passengers, you can load your cargo, but also the fuel. And as you can see here, I can change the fuel if I want to change it. Currently, it's 50% filled, let's say, so 180 on the left side, 180 on the right side, which makes 360 gal in total. Fine for me. Pressing the tab key again, because I pressed the wrong key, and then we go back to the aircraft checklist. So we've checked the fuel, and then we're going to go to the verify. Hydraulic gouges are in the green. The hydraulic gouges can be found over here. And there are some other lights also burning, which is always surprising. but you can also switch this one to on, in this case the anti-skid. You will also see that the light directly, let's say, switches off. The hydraulic pumps are by default set to auto, but you can override it by removing this. Currently you can see that the gauge is in green, which means it's good because that's also what is mentioned in the checklist. Next to that we've got the cabin pressure, and if we press the icon you can see it's pretty close. And the weird thing is that it says set the target cabin altitude. And if you look at the cabin altitude, that's this setting. The question is, okay, to which value do you need to set it? That's a very good question. I didn't figure it out also yet, to be honest. But you need to set it to the target cabin altitude, which is likely the altitude which you're gonna land on the airport. I tried moving it or changing it, and that can be done using this button. But there's also an auto option here, so I'm not sure if this one is, I would say, if this functionality is working. But keep in mind that you might need to make some modifications. If you see, I can change it, but say really nothing happens. Could have to do that the aircraft is not fully started yet. Because this one, the landing altitude, can be changed. So I'll mark it off for now. And then we will have a look at the power levelers. And they need to be set to ground idle. As you can see, in some cases it doesn't move you to the correct view. If that happens, then you need to, say, manually search for the blinking item, because that's, I would say, set correctly. Then the conditional levelers, which are also not done, they're over here. They need to be set to cut off, which is this status. Because the next one is start, then you've got UNF, min, max and TM. Then the trims, also really important. There are multiple trims, as you can see over here. The trims can be set on the rudder side, on the pitch strip, up and down if you want to change it, and roll left or right. And as you can see, there are multiple arrows, which also means that there sometimes are different buttons. And those different buttons are likely, I would say, on the yokes, which are now hidden. So if you don't see it, then you can always press the Shift 1 key, which resets to this view, and then again, and will bring you to this view where you will be able to see the yokes. And here you see also that the trim settings are over here. Then you need to make sure that the trims are set to green, and the green is referred to, let me hide this one. If I go to the arrows over here, I can press it again. And then I also can validate if the trims are in the green phase. And the greens are over here, because I forgot to show you. Here you can see these are the trims, right? If you change these buttons, if you change the trim, you will also see it being affected here. So currently they're in a 0 state, but you might want to change it, for example, to a little bit up or a little bit down, depending on what you prefer. Then we've got the speed box, and the speed box are a little bit special because currently they show it like that because we've got two of them. This one and the one on the right side. And the funny thing is that it has kind of these kind of things. And these are the ones to set the speeds. Yes, really weird. I would say in modern aircrafts you would use it using the digital panels, but in this aircraft you can set them like this. Of course you first need to calculate those speeds, and at least that's recommended to do. And then based on that you can move it. It just is a reference. The aircraft itself doesn't do anything with it. Don't forget to always, change the other ones on the co-pilot side also. So currently we set them on the pilot side, but also communicate these settings with the co-pilot. With that, we're at, I would say, almost done, right? We're here with starting the engine. We just completed the before starting engine phase. So let's make sure that the co-pilot also has these settings correct. And to do that, we're going to figure out which key we need to press. 8, 9, 0. Well, none of the keys are working. So in that case, you can always move around with your mouse and then make sure that you set the speeds correct. So set the one to first one to 120, then the second one to 140. I think that's what we had, and then the last one to 160. I know I showed it a little bit different on the left side, but this is the recommended approach. Now we're at the starting the engine. Starting the engine. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to switch on the beacons. And I'm going to move this panel a little bit so you can see what I'm going to do. I switch it to low because it's not very clear from the manual if you need to set it to high. Then we're going to make sure that the doors are, I would say, checked. which means that we need to make sure that the doors are closed. As you can see, everything is say not illuminated, which means they're closed. Boss tie to on or auto, which is the case by default, so don't worry about that. And then we're going to make sure that the left and the right avionics settings are set to off, which is the case. Then we've got the voltmeter, and the voltmeter, as you can see, it's a little bit weird because it's currently set to 30, which means that we're running on external power. But if you move this one, you can also see that if I'm switching it, I can also measure the batteries. So I can move around. You can see that some of the powers are simply set to 0, but generator 0, but the battery provides us power, a little bit more than 25, and also the ESS. And that's what you can do for multiple, let's say, items. So super handy to use. And as you can see, it's a green area in all the cases, so that's good. The next step is we're going to switch on the starter switch to right. You can move it to right, which is this side. And then we're going to move the conditional leveler. So the conditional leveler can be found over here, and it needs to be set to minimum. Make sure that you put it, I would say, strongly to the forward and strongly in this position, because if you don't do it, say, things will not happen. Once that's done, then you need to monitor the engine. And the engine, you can see things are happening now. Because remember, the left engine pressure was also limited for the right one, but that one has moved. So let's see if things are happening. You can see that the RPMs are increasing. You can see that the oil temperature is increasing, where the PSI is already the pressure. You can see that the fuel flow is, well, it has increased a bit. And you can see that the engine temperature is, let's say, not yet increasing, but keep an eye on that one. The most important thing is that you check if you can switch the engine starter, which is here on the top, back to normal. Because if you don't do that, this one will also not reset, and then the engine, if you switch on this one to right, will switch off. Now if we look over here, you can also hear the engines already a bit. You can see that the engine temperature now starts to increase, as well as the RPMs. The RPMs are in the green zone. You can see that the other gauges are also in the green zone. You can see that the prop is in the green zone. You can see that other things are now starting to increase, which is good. At one point they will stabilize, depending on the temperature outside. So you can see 480, 83, and this is good. So we can continue, because we need to do exactly the same for the left engine. But to do that, we need to move to the top again, move this one to L start, because we want to start the left engine. Then we need to make sure that the conditional leveler for the left engine is also set to minimum. So move it to the minimum, because else things will go wrong. Don't move it to start. So that's done. And then we're gonna look at the top again. We're gonna move this one to normal. And what you can do to safely protect the aircraft is, I would say, close these ones to prevent that you're, say, kind of damaging or switching off the engines again. And then you hear the roaring engines. You can see that the temperatures are building up. You can see that some things are still illuminated, which means, hey, there is something with the batteries, and there's something with the ice protection, and the parking brakes are on, and the gas lock is on. Well, don't worry, we will fix that. Because the next step is the after start engine. In the after start engine, we will fix at least the electric ones. But first, let's make sure that we switch on the auto course setting to on. And then go to the next step, which are simply switching on the generators. And the generators can be found over here. Can switch them on to on, and you can see that then the lights are going off, which is good. Then we can switch on the left and the right avionics, and then make sure that the emergency light is armed, which is the default position. Then the conditional levelers, we need to move them to max, so we need to move them one position further. What you will see now and also here is that, say, things might be a little bit more louder than I would say you expect, but that's good. Then we've got the ice protection. The ice protection, verify that the heated and windshield switch are on the ice protection panel, and that can be found on the laptop as already mentioned. So here it says you need to verify that the pitot and the windshield are on. So let's also do that. The windshield can be found over here. With one simple click they're on, and the pitot we can also switch it on. About the engines, you need to leave them off according to the manual, but keep an eye on the temperature outside. Then on the overhead panel, right, visual, check all caution LEDs. Well, currently none of the caution LEDs are illuminated, which is good. If something is illuminated, then please take action before you continue. Once we're done, we can check the EFIS. The EFIS over here, right, we can see, okay, hey, what do we see? We see the airport here. We can see this page. You can see that we can't really modify anything here, but it's good. We don't need to check it. And then we could of course continue with the before the takeoff. But before doing that, we of course need to make sure that the flight plan is set. And as you can see, it's not mentioned anywhere in this manual or in this checklist. But I would recommend you to set up the flight plan. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it very quickly. If you want to know more in detail, you can always check the video which I created, say previous week. So the first thing which you need to do is make sure that you press the exact option. You can always check the database expires because it needs to be a valid period. In this case it's valid until the 16th of April 2026, which is good because we're currently on the 27th of March. So I'm gonna press accept and then we're good. Besides that, you can of course set up your flight plan. If you want to do that, you can press the flight plan option and define the flight plan. In this case you can see the airport has been set to ESSL. And I'm gonna quickly set the arrival airport by using this option. Set arrival. I'm gonna say switch or define the arrival over here. So let me figure out where we're gonna fly to. I think Copenhagen might be nice. Copenhagen, right? So let's switch here. You can see it was already there, right? Add to the flight plan. As arrival, then we're gonna open this one, switch it to ESSL, and then also make sure that we're gonna define the Victor Airways find route, because then we don't have to find it. And then I'm gonna simply add the flight plan really quickly over here. So I'm gonna press the keys EKCH. I need to have this one. CH, and then hit the enter key. Accept it. Runway. Well, what's a runway? 22R, so that's number 5. Press the enter key. Then I'm gonna select the approach, which is set to Airno 4C, which is number 1. Press enter, and we don't have this one, which is good. And then we're gonna select ILS approach 1. We can always change it. It's direct, so we don't have any transition. So I'm gonna simply press enter again, and then we go back to the flight plan. As you can see, currently it's set like this, which is good, because the only thing which we now need to add is these items which are above the procedure. So we add this one over here, and then we can say MESMA, hit enter, accept, and then I'm gonna select MISMA again and add NILEN, hit enter again, accept. Then we're gonna select nylon and then say TOI, hit enter again, ELPA, X from X-ray, hit enter again, and then the last one VSN. So let's also add that one, VSN, hit enter, accept it, and then the flight plan is programmed, so we're good to go. Right, you can see that everything is there. You can see multiple pages, multiple, I would say, disruptions, but that's good. So nothing to do besides this, because you can go to the menu, but as you can see in the menu you can't change many things besides these items. You can press the navigation one, which shows you, say, a little bit more detailed list. If you want to fly to a different beacon, you can press the DTO setting, and you can press the VNAV if the VNAV path is available. Currently, there's nothing more we need to do. You can check the view, you can add the passengers, right? If you have passengers, you can add them here, which cause this makes it more easy. Where to get these values? Super easy. Go to the aircraft, press the aircraft again, go to the flight path, not flight path, go to the flight performance, then hit the settings over here. And if you press the E from India, you'll be able to get the values from here, right? So the zero fuel weight, you can get it from here. So you can say, hey, the zero fuel weight is 18324. No, not the number of passengers. The number of passengers is 0. Oh, come on, how can I do that? I need to add the number of passengers. So let's say 10 passengers. Again, at 200, that's fine for me. There's no cargo, so I'll set to 0. Hit enter, and then based on that calculates it. Of course, it's deviating from this because we didn't add the passengers, so let's also make sure we set it correctly. So we're gonna say only one passenger. I think we need to decrease it a bit. Because we of course need to set it to 1 over here, because else it's too much. We don't have too many passengers. You can also see there's still some issues with the panel, but hey, we don't need to worry about that. So switch about this. So now we've got 6, 7, 8, 9, and I will put number 10 over here. So now it's good. You can see 12 lbs. Well, not sure if it's 100% correctly, but hey, we set like this. You can of course always scroll to the pages. If you press the next one, you can see, okay, hey, what are the other items, like the takeoff. You can see the distance, you can see the elapsed time, the fuel on board, the endurance. You can see the fuel flow, the used on board, the gross weight, the fuel on board, again, the temperature, and then look at the engines, right? Engine number 1 and 2. 2, of course, it used a little bit more because we kind of, I would say, started that one earlier, right? So it makes sense. So nothing to worry about. So let's now go to the altimeter settings, right? The altimeter settings are, say, both are set, or need to be set on both ends. You can see it's blinking here, and you can see it's blinking over here. And you can change the setting over there by using this small knob. Don't forget to do it on both ends. It's always good to listen into the ATIS, and you can do that by pressing this option, and then I need to hide this one. And you can sometimes listen into the ATIS of the say airport. If you don't know the ATIS frequency, there's an easy way to discover it. Simply search for the airport. In this case, already being added, right? Because we already added the airport. Then press the E from India. Then go to the frequencies, and then you will be able to see the frequencies. Not every airport, for some reason, has an ATIS. I don't know why, but there is probably is some reason. But you can always get it from this one, which is the meter, or the TAF, depending on what you prefer. If you press the meter, right, you can see 2991. That's the air pressure, and we need to change it because it's 2992. Let's also do it on the other end. You can see it's syncing automatically. I'm not sure if that also is normal, but hey, it's set. So we're happy. Then the flaps for takeoff. The flaps are over here, so you can move it to a different position, so 7 or 15, and then you directly hear them, right? So I'll set it 7. Very nice. And then the flight instruments, we need to look, okay, they are set. Radios, make sure that they're set correctly, but it will all be done automatically because it's done by the autopilot. Easy for us. Then the external lighting, which is also important because we're almost going to taxi. We need to make sure that the taxi lights are switched on, the strobes are on, the navigation lights are on, landing lights, we don't need to switch them on for now. And the flight controls are free. Well, that's pretty handy, right? So we can still move or say yoke, so that's done. And the instrument checks again. verify that the engines are stable and in green. So make sure that you are always in green. As you can see, everything is in green, 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 green. You can see this one is a little bit low, but we will fix it if we would say increase the engines. Then it's time to release the parking brakes. But be careful, because as soon as you release the parking brakes, the aircraft potentially is gonna start driving. But before doing that, we're gonna check this one, because this one you can see it's currently set to radar, and you can also switch to nav, and now you can see it's, let's say, showing us the flight path which we need to fly. Besides that, everything here looks clear, so let's hit the shift 1 again, which brings us to this pane, and then hit shift 1 again, which brings us to this, and then use the mouse cursor to move us like this. Now in this case we need to watch out, because there's that nice pushback truck. So what we can do is we can ask the ATC for pushback, because we need to be pushed back, because else we're between brackets screwed. So we're gonna say, hey, we're gonna ask straight out departure.
Saab ground, LH490 Lima Hotel 490, request taxi for takeoff, departing straight out.
LH490 Lima Hotel 490, taxi to and hold short of runway 29 via taxiway Hotel Charlie Cross runway 29 kilo. Contact tower on 133.105 when ready.
Taxi to and hold short runway 29 using taxiway Hotel Charlie Cross runway 29 kilo, LH490 Lima Hotel 490.
So we're good, right? We know the taxi route, we can see the arrows because I switched on the option. If you don't know how to do that, you can always switch them on the assistance in the assistance panel. So I would recommend to switch them on initially, but it's really up to you.
LH490 Lima Hotel 490, requesting pushback.
LH490 Lima Hotel 490.
You can see what happens.
Pushback request accepted.
Then don't forget to remove the parking brakes, because else the truck will have a hard, will have it pretty hard to push you back. But wait till it's connected. Unfortunately, if you're using the default torque, it doesn't tell you to remove it. If you're using GSX, it will tell you. So let me remove it. And here you can see I can move. I'm pushing back. I can steer to the left, steer to the right. So let's steer to the right a bit. I'm always pressing the wrong option.
Requesting pushback tug to steer the aircraft to the right.
And now we say stop.
Your request has been transmitted to the operator.
And then you're screwed. Now we need to be changed to the left. You see, I always press the wrong option, but it simply is too funny, right?
LH490 Lima Hotel 490. Your request has been transmitted to the operator.
Well, no, I think it's fine. So as soon as the pushback truck stops, make sure you set the parking brake again. This simply to avoid that you're gonna move the aircraft or you're gonna drive into the aircraft. And then I'm gonna go to the clearance and we can simply taxi, because that's the first thing we're gonna do. We're gonna taxi and then we're gonna take off. Super nice, super easy with this Saab 340. So it's almost gone, as you can see. So here we go, we're gonna remove the parking brakes. And as I already predicted, the aircraft will start to move. And that's of course is dangerous. Don't forget to remove the gust lock, because else you can't steer the aircraft. Like I also explained in tens of $1,000 videos. And what do I forget to do myself? I forget to remove it. And that's because it's not mentioned in the checklist. So don't forget to remove it, because else you can't steer the aircraft, because the gust lock is there to protect the aircraft. Remember, it protects the aircraft against gusts. It protects the rudder, which means that if you don't remove it, you also can't steer the aircraft. Always be very careful with taxiing, because the aircraft will go very fast in a very short period, as you could also see. See, we can move. We're moving, and we're on our way now to the runway, because we're gonna take off to a flight for Copenhagen. Copenhagen Airport, that's the airport which we're gonna go to. Make sure that you, let's say, brake in advance, because in some cases you might, I would say, enter a runway, so always be very careful. In this case, the arrows are still blue, so let's continue taxiing for now. But let me double check the runway, because I forgot to make a note about it. So where do we need to go to? 29. Okay, we can remove it because we need to be at the other side of the runway, which is good for us. So let's do it. And you can see I only need to steer the aircraft because the, say, kind of the throttling is already done for us. Sometimes you need to brake a bit, right, to adjust the speed, because you might want to readjust it. So you might want to reduce the speed. Also these speeds, which are, I would say, which we did set using this nice things. You also find the reference card on the right side of the aircraft with the Copilot, and I will also show them on the screen, possibly right now, so you can also have a look at it yourself. So here you can see we need to make a turn, so let's kind of reduce speed a bit. I didn't need to set the parking brakes. For those who saw or paid attention, you saw the light illuminating here, but that's of course not what I want to do. So what's the speed? Well, it depends also, of course, on your takeoff weight. In this case, we set it to pretty high speeds, right? 120, 140. Based on some research, I figured out that the V2 is approximately 126 knots. So here we're almost at the runway. As you can see, we look now to the left side. You can see there's the runway, right? The wind is already blowing a little bit. So 126, that's the speed, roughly. That's the calculated speed. I will likely show you in another video how to calculate it precisely. But for now, please accept that that's the case. Now we've done that, right? Let's make sure that we tune into the tower. And then say, hey, request clearance for VFR.
Saab Tower, LH419 Lima Hotel 490 ready at runway 29er, straight out departure.
LH490 Lima Hotel 490, QNH 101 tree straight out departure approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 29er.
Cleared for takeoff runway 29er, LH419 Lima Hotel 490.
So that's done. Let's open this one, because we need to double check that we missed something. No, we did everything. We open the after takeoff checklist just to make sure that we're having that one ready once we're airborne. You can always adjust this screen, right? If you think it's too big, you can see that I can make it smaller if you want. Although I think this is almost the smallest option. And if you're lucky, you've got a second monitor, you can always set it or move it to that second monitor if you like, because I sometimes simply hate to have a look at it, because it simply consumes a lot of space, especially if you're playing at 920 by 1080, which I'm doing for the video only, because normally I can play on higher resolutions. So here we are, we're at the runway. Everybody happy? I am. So let's finally get airborne, although we went already airborne with the other aircraft, remember, in our previous videos. Also with, I said the other aircraft, but I meant another video, because of course we went already, I would say, in the air with the Saab 340, because then we looked at this specific setting, and remember it, we looked at the CTOT, but we're not going to use it today, because I'm kind of happy with what we're doing. But if you want to know how the CTOT works, then have a look at the previous videos in this series, because it's well explained as well as nicely demoed on how the CTOT can help you. Now of course I need to zoom out a bit because I want to keep an eye on the speed. Remember, we set the speed box, we set them over here. You can see we're already 140, so I can push back and then I can do gears up. Once you've got a positive climb, you can open this, you can say, hey, landing gears are up. Let's also move the flaps up. And then let's look forward, because that's the way we want to have a look at. And now we're airborne with this nice aircraft. So, was it hard? I don't think so. It was, I would say, pretty easy to take off. So we have the stripes on, or the strobes on. We did, I would say, encounter no issues. We are airborne, and of course we could have used the CTOT, but it's not mentioned in the manual. But it's already shown in the previous video, or it was not the previous one, it was the video before that. You can use that functionality if you want. Once you're airborne and you're, say, on a higher altitude, don't forget to also decrease engine power a bit, because hey, it does make sense to leave the engines on for a long time. Now if we open the EFB, we can also move to the flight plan, and then we center on the aircraft. We can have a look where we are, because we need to make a large turn, right? Because we need to move to VSN, to heading 173. Before doing that, let's make sure that we did everything. We need to switch off the auto coursen. Let's do that as we speak. Switch it off. Taxi lights, we don't need them anymore, right? Taxi lights are on the bottom. Switch them off. Landing lights, you can switch them on, not specifically required. Cabin pressure check, keep an eye on them, and the altimeters right there set correctly. So now we can hide this one, because we don't need it for a long time, because we need it only when we're, let's say, close to the other airport. So you can see we're making a smooth turn. We're, let's say, at 3000 feet. And of course now comes in the next thing, because we did take off, and of course what we could do is use the autopilot, because we didn't discuss it yet. How to use it? Relatively easy. The autopilot can be found pressing the key Shift 8. Always press the wrong ones. Shift 8, and that brings you to this panel. Now this panel is super nice, because there's the altitude, and that's the first thing we're gonna set, right? We want to make sure that we're flying, let's say maximum 5000. You hear the beep, and that means that you're very close to the target altitude which you did set. Currently we need to first correct the aircraft direction, and now this has been set, we need to enable the autopilot. And for those who are not aware, the autopilot functionality can be found over here somewhere. It's over here, and when you switch it on, you can see that the yaw damper also is automatically enabled. If you've done that, then you can switch on either the climb mode, which will make sure that the aircraft will start to climb with a specific speed, with the indicated airspeed, right? That's where IS stands for. And you can see in the left screen, zoom over here, autopilot is being enabled, 1 on 20 climb mode. That's perfectly fine. But of course there's more which we can do, because we also can change the direction in which we fly, because else we need to, let's say, adjust the direction continuously, and we can do that using a few options. First of all, we can use the navigation mode, and if we enable the navigation mode, that's the easiest way, because then it will use the flight which we programmed in this nice system to fly into the correct direction. So you can see that the aircraft now automatically starts to make a turn to the right to go to VSN, which is the next beacon. This one is super nice and super easy to use. In the meantime, we need to keep an eye on the altitude. Besides climbing using the climb mode, you can also decide to climb and descend using the VS, which stands for vertical speed mode. It really depends on what you prefer, right? If you prefer to use that mode, you can also do that. The other thing which you need to keep an eye on is that the aircraft will continue climbing unless you press the altitude button. If you don't press the altitude button, what will happen is that the aircraft will continue to climb until until you stop it, because it will continue to do it once. Now, of course, if you want to descend the aircraft, as mentioned, the VS, the vertical speed mode, for that one you need to use this button over here to change the climb rate or the descent rate, right? Use this one to climb or descend, and what you will see is if you would use it, which I can show you shortly, I press VS. You can see nothing happens currently, but you can change it by using this knob over here, and then I can push it a little bit down, and what you should be able to see now is that the aircraft will start to descend a bit. I say a bit because you can see, hey, here it goes, right? Vertical speed, that can be seen over here, and it starts to descend now a bit. You can also see that the altitude drops. And once we're happy, we simply smash that altitude button over here. Let me do that. I'm close to the 5000. Here we go. The altitude button. And now it should stabilize. Currently, we're flying the navigation mode, but you also have the heading mode, as already mentioned. And to fly the heading mode, there is also a nice button over here, and that's this one, because you can change it. You can change it over here and it will change the direction. I would say it's kind of hard to see. Let me move it again, because if I move it, if I'm lucky, I'm not lucky, because this is not the button, it's this one. How easy can it be? This is the one which you need to move, and if you pay close attention, well, this might be almost impossible to see, but you can see that now this arrow has moved a bit. I always recommend to say kind of change the option, right? So to change it and to turn it into the direction where you fly to. Because if something happens with the navigation, you can always use this functionality. You can always switch back to the heading mode, and the heading mode can be simply activated by pressing this option. You can see that now it switched to heading mode, so it informs the autopilot to use the heading mode. Also here heading mode is activated, and then I can switch to navigation mode, and then it will be off. It will only show you the heading mode and the approach mode if you're using them, and the other modes are not shown here on the top, so don't expect anything over there. But that's how it is. And that will simply fly your flight path. This is how easy it can be flying the Saab 330. Flying the Saab 340. Now, it's always a challenge for you to fly this aircraft. Now, it could be a challenge for you to fly this aircraft, but to be honest, I'd say once you know the facts, which we discussed in the previous videos and this, you should be able to fly it. But there are of course some things which you need to keep in mind or need to have a look at. For example, the temperatures. So if you want to kind of fly the aircraft, be very careful with these levers, right? Because if you move them too fast, you will start, let's say, screwing up your engine. Likely not on short term, but on long term you might, I would say, screw the aircraft completely. So that's it for now, because we are ending this video over here, because we did enough. We discussed a lot. We discussed how to start the aircraft, we discussed where you need to pay attention to, how to program the flight, how to use most of the autopilot functionality. But of course we didn't use all of the auto functionality. But of course we didn't use all of the autopilot functionality yet. But that will be done in a future video, because in the next video we're gonna look at how to prepare for the descent, and then also how to land on the airport. So which things do you need to pay attention during that phase of the flight. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, then make sure to hit the like button and don't forget to hit subscribe, because else you might miss the next video. Thanks for watching and hope to see you back next week.